The old tuberculosis ward had been empty for decades before they finally decided to tear it down and put up luxury apartments instead. The building's architect, Mr. Bellwether, a portly man with twinkling eyes and a handlebar mustache, made sure to emphasize that all the apartments were soundproofed, that there would be no disturbing noises from the hospital's history seeping through the walls to disturb their upscale clientele. And so far, he'd been right. It had been eerily silent until last week when Mrs. Hemmings moved into apartment 3B. At first, it was just an occasional cough, something she could easily tune out while watching television or reading a book. But then the cough started coming every night, always around 3 a.m. Loud, wet coughing, rattling deep within the walls like some creature trapped inside was trying to claw its way out. Of course, she told herself, it's an old building. There probably just needed to do some repairs. But her husband, Harry, insisted that she get to the bottom of it. Don't let some nonsense rattle you, he said, patting her hand. If it's a problem, we'll solve it. So Mrs. Hemmings grabbed a flashlight and went to investigate. She tried the door to the apartment next to theirs, but it was locked, so she tried the one above. To her surprise, it opened right up. No one was home, thank goodness, because she couldn't very well ask a complete stranger if they were keeping a pet in their apartment. So she looked around. Everything seemed normal until she saw it, a small, unassuming vent hidden in the corner above the bookcase. She shone her flashlight inside and gasped. It led to a narrow shaft going down. She could hear coughing from inside it, just as she had heard it from outside the apartment wall. Curiosity got the better of her. She took off the cover and climbed in. The shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for her shoulders, but she managed to wriggle down it, scraping her arms and knees on the concrete. Finally, she reached the bottom and found herself in a small, windowless room. The walls were bricked up, the air thick and stagnant, and on the floor was a pile of what looked like old medical waste, rubber gloves, gauze, masks, even a rusty metal tray. Then she noticed the markings on the wall: TB, airborne, infectious. This was an isolation room, but it wasn't on the blueprints. She remembered Mr. Bellwether showing them the plans for the building, and there had been no mention of a room like this. Suddenly, the hair on the back of her neck stood up, and she broke into a run. She didn't know what was down there, but she knew she didn't want to find out. As she scrambled up the shaft, coughing echoed through the room behind her, growing louder and wetter. She burst through the vent and gasped for breath, clutching at her chest. She didn't tell Harry what she'd seen, not at first. She didn't want to scare him, but she also didn't want to give him the satisfaction of solving the mystery. So she waited until he called the landlord, Mr. Bellwether himself, to complain about the noise. She watched from the doorway as Harry spoke into the phone, his face growing redder and angrier by the minute. "I want this fixed immediately," he roared. "We're paying top dollar for these apartments, and I wouldn't have some crackpot veterinarian upstairs making a nuisance of himself." He hung up and turned to leave. "See that you get some sleep tonight," he told her. "We'll sort this out in the morning." But she didn't sleep a wink. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the coughing creature in the isolation room, growing stronger, hungrier. By the time morning came, she was a gibbering wreck, hardly able to string two sentences together. Harry looked at her with alarm, realizing that whatever it was down in that room, it was somehow feeding on his wife's fear. That's when he heard it. Not a rattling cough, but a wet, gurgly noise, like a swamp monster gargling with phlegm. It was coming from the vent. Harry stared at it, dumbfounded. "Well now," he said slowly, "that certainly complicates things. The creature in the isolation room wasn't a ghost. It was something much more terrifying. A disease given form and made real through negative emotions. It fed on fear and anger, growing stronger the more it consumed. And it was slowly infecting everyone in the building who heard its cough, turning their fear and anger towards each other, until one day it would be strong enough to break free and walk among them in the form of a very sick person.